Hi, this is Vamsi Kurkuri and I'm going to give the presentation on Spring Security. So in my previous demo, I have already demonstrated Spring Security within JSF implementation, and we have two videos on that, the part 1 and part 2. So here you go, these are the two videos, Spring Security within JSF part 1, Spring Security with JSF part 2. So these are like almost 10 minutes videos. We have two videos for that. Maybe you can follow these videos to configure Spring Security within a JSF application. Okay, if you are familiar with that, you can actually look the current video, and if you have any questions, or you can actually post the comments on this video, or you can mail me on vamsikurkuri@gmail.com. The current topic, as I already told you, we're going to cover the Spring Security within a JSF application, that is configuring it from a database. There's nothing but the ACL access control list from a database. Let us actually look into the configuration details. Here is the simple project, that is I created a JSF R&D, and this is the project I'm using to demonstrate Spring Security access control list from a database. What I'm trying to do, first look into the configurations, appconfig.xml, and this is the Spring configuration file. Maximize this. So in the previous demo, we normally configure our resource security here. This is where our resource security, the name of the element is HTTP, and this is where the access denied page and the login. We're normally using form based login here, the login page, and the default target URL slash, and and define the patterns, that mean intercept patterns, where the login page get intercepted for the following patterns. And the pages slash admin slash tar, normally the role is admin, and the pages slash everything, like the role is the role slash user, the role slash admin. That actually means the pages under all this folder can be accessed by both admin as well as the user, and the pages under pages slash admin can be accessed only by the admin user. And the rest is the basic configuration. You can actually configure your configuration, I mean the authentication manager with authentication provider, and this is how it's a simple configuration in the Spring config file. We're going to move one step forward and actually move these user details to the database and access the configuration information, I mean the access control list from a database. In addition, what we have done is so your authentication manager is calling a user service reference, that is a user service bean, a Java class, instead of actually defining the user details here. We're going to cover the password encoding later, but we're not going to talk anything on the encoding part in this demo. The rest of the two things I have defined here is the Spring Beans, the DAO authentication provider, where I pass my user detail service. It is the custom it's the custom implementation what I have been implemented for getting the user details from the database. Actually means that when you get the authentication manager object, you're going to get a DAO as a dependency injection for that. That DAO has again a dependency for user detail service. This is where you have written all your logic for getting the user details. Now look into the Java resources. I would like to first demonstrate on the packages. So here is a few packages I have created. The rnd.dao, all the data access resources goes here, and the model, all the entities, the persistent objects goes here, and the services, all the services goes here. So I have defined a service here, user detail service. If you expand, here's the detail service impli, which actually implements the user detail service interface, the Spring interface, and implementing the load user by username method. So I have not done much in this method. The thing is, the first step what I have created is uh, getting the get username from the data access object by passing the username. If the user find, that's fine. If we did not find a user, it is null. If it is null, I'm throwing an exception, user not found. And if I find an user, what I'm trying to do here is collection. I'm actually getting the user roles, the roles for this user, maybe an admin or a user, and putting them as a granted authority objects, implementation objects, and adding them to authority collection. So I'm just preparing this authority collection and creating an user details object, and this user is basically a Spring user, security code.user. This constructor actually takes a couple of arguments: the username, password. If the user is enabled, account is not expired, yes, it's not expired, and credentials not expired, yes, they are not expired, and account is not locked, and the authority is nothing but the roles. So all you can actually create a user object with all those details, but I have not created my user object, just created whether it is enabled or not. But for now, for this demonstration, we're going to use the enable status for the rest of the four parameters for this constructor. Passing the authorities and nothing but the roles granted. So these are the things we're actually passing to the user details object and returning back. That's what the simple implementation we have done. And if you look into the actual JSF implementation for authenticating the user, we did not do any changes here. It just looks like the same authentication what we have done before, not even a single change here. So this actually means that the authentication is completely pluggable. You can actually plug any kind of authentication provider here. For example, if you are actually trying to do an authentication from a Gmail account, so you can actually use the Gmail API to authenticate the Gmail login details and create your user details object and put it on the Spring framework. That's how you can do. You can actually write a service calling a web service here and getting the authentication information from a third-party system. Now we use a database here, so we actually call a DAO here. Instead, you can actually call another service or another service provider like a Gmail, Yahoo, whatever it is. Maybe if you are developing some public sites where you would like to take your Gmail details for authentication, this is the best way to do it. And that's it on the user detail service implementation class. Now let us look onto the actual implementation on the DAO and the model. The DAO is the data access layer. This is what the interface is. So I just created one method, get user by username. That's it, and that actually returns a Java object, plain old Java object, and since it is annotated with entity, I can call this as entity bean, user entity bean. The implementation actually is pretty simple. So these are all the Spring stuff on post construct. I'm actually initializing the Hibernate template. After that, the get user. This is where the get user object implementation, get user by username implementation. I'm just using this Hibernate search API, I mean the criteria API for searching the username on that. That's all I have done. And the very interesting thing is, let us look onto the model objects, how they looks like. So you have two objects, one is user, another is the security roles. Let us walk one by one. User object. So the user object has an ID, and the next one is the username. Basically the ID is the primary key. In your case, most of the cases, maybe you can actually make the user as an ID, but it's up to you how to define this object. But I recommend this strategy, always making the ID as a number, and it should be a long for all the entities. And next one is the password, and I just created another field called active, and these are all the rest of the setters. And I have another collection of roles, and I define my mapping here, mapped by user on the collection of, the security roles object. And these are the security roles here. The security role is just take the role's name and which user it is associated with. So it has only two fields. One is the role name, another is the user. That's all. And I put my annotated classes here. com.bmfusion.rna.model.user is one my entity, another entity is the security resource. Since I use Hibernate, the database will be created on the fly, so I don't need to create any schema in my database. Now let us start executing it. Okay, let us start in normal without debug mode and see how it works. Okay, there you go. Now it started working fine. Now let's go back to our database and see what happens here. Refresh all and come here on tables. It created two tables. One is the security. If you look at the tables, it created ID, username, and password. And here you have the ID, role name, and the user ID, which is the association. Basically a foreign key for the user table. It's cool. Now let me so there you go, we are set with everything. And now if you go back to the Eclipse and I say who are you, I'm an admin, say admin, say login. So you log in, you're admin, you're on the admin page. So go home, click on user, you're admin, you're on the user page. Go home, again click on admin, you're back, say log out, click on user, you can still log in as admin, you're admin, you're on the user page, log out, click on admin, say user, tab user, click here. Yeah, we are sorry because you are not authorized to access the page. Because you are a user, you cannot access the admin page. Go home, click on user, click the user, say login. That's it. See, for your information, you can actually look into the logs. For each time you click on that login, it's going to select the username and as well as the roles for that user, and this is the query. So you can actually see that now the ACL list has been, access control list has been pulled out from the database instead of from the configuration files. And that's how you can actually configure Spring Security with an external component, either that can be the database or it can be a web service or a third-party authentication provider.